my name is Sascha Radetsky. Currently, I'm Artistic Director of American Ballet Theater Studio Company. Formerly, I was a soloist with the company, danced for about 19 years with ABT. This week, ABT would have been presenting a mixed rep bill at the Metropolitan Opera House as part of its annual spring season. Among the ballets would have been Jardin Aux Lilas by Anthony Tudor, Theme and Variations by George Balanchine, and Fancy Free by Jerome Robins. Having had the chance to perform all the works, I was asked to present a ballet class inspired by those ballets, incorporating maybe some phrases or movements, iconic motifs, etc. Also, I was asked to share an anecdote or two about my personal experience with the ballets. Jardin Aux Lilas, Lilac Garden, it premiered in 1936 at a time when a lot of choreographers were featuring supernatural creatures in their ballets, fauns and sylphs and swans. Tudor was interested in human beings, warts and all. He jettisoned a lot of the trappings of classical ballet, port de bras and certain aspects that maybe he considered contrived. And he was more interested in the essence of telling a story and of getting into someone's inner psyche, their desires, their frailties, their secrets. And I think that Jardin Aux Lilas is a good representation of those interests. It's about a love triangle, a woman who is betrothed to marry a man whom she does not love. The man who she does love is in the ballet, but they do not end up together, alas. I remember being in the ballet early on in my career. I think the steps were pretty simple in a way, but they were hard to get just right. There was a lot of subtlety to it. They weren't virtuosic jumps and turns and nothing bombastic, but he was very particular, evidently. I never worked with him, but he was very particular in the way you presented them. If you presented them in the right way without commenting on them or opining on them or interpreting the steps, you would tell a story. It was all in the steps. You just had to be the right vessel. Tudor, of course, went on to create many masterpieces for ABT, including The Leaves Are Fading, which is my personal favorite, which tracks through a series of pas de deux, the evolution of a romantic relationship. It's set to Dvorak and it's gorgeous. My other favorite is Dark Elegies, which is based on true and tragic events. Theme and Variations. Wow, what a masterwork. What a tour de force. Premiered in 1947 at City Center in New York City and was created on a very young ABT. I think it showcases Balanchine's mastery in myriad ways. His ability to marshal large groups on stage in really fresh and astonishing formations. His ability to match movement, marry it beautifully with the music. In this case, a gorgeous, soaring Tchaikovsky score. His ability to take simple movements and make them interesting, like the tendu phrase that we're going to learn later, and make them surprisingly intricate. He's playful in that way. Theme, man, you have to have the technique, you have to have the chops to do it. You're pretty much naked out there, literally and figuratively. The guys are in white tights, the ladies are in pink tights. There's nowhere to run, there's nowhere to hide. You have to be able to hit fifth, you have to be on the music, and that music is sometimes very fast, but it's very exciting. You gotta do those double tours and pirouettes, and if you're the gentleman, you have to have the stamina to keep lifting through that pas de deux, which is pretty tough, and basically without pause, go right into the coda. I know for principal dancers, they consider it one of the hardest ballets to do in all the rep. Even though you're not telling a story, it's just sheer technique and it's dazzling. I think it's timeless, and I hope that ABT does it for another 100 years or another 80 years or another 180 years. And I'm excited to see the dancers of tomorrow with their ever increasing technique and tackle that ballet. Fancy Free. Now, this ballet of the three is the nearest and dearest to my heart. Fancy Free was created in 1944, or premiered in 1944 in April, when the Allies were a year away from victory in Europe, and the US was a year and a half away from victory over Japan. So it was a very fraught time. The stakes were high, and the ballet shows three sailors on leave in New York City, trying to make the most of their one night in New York. And I think the specter of their death or of the war looms over the whole ballet and imbues it with more meaning and more urgency. It's like a little time capsule, this ballet. It's a window into a time and place in our history. I love that it's not performed for an audience. It's like the audience is looking through a keyhole at this little episode. I first saw Fancy when I was a little kid. I saw ABT perform it in San Francisco. The cast included Gil Boggs as the first sailor and Kevin McKenzie as the third sailor. And I remember just being blown away, and I can trace to that moment when I decided I wanted to become a dancer. And it was because I wanted to do Fancy Free, at least in large part because I wanted to do Fancy Free. Flash forward several years later, I'm in ABT, I'm a young whippersnapper, and I suffered a pretty major ankle injury that dragged on for several months. I wasn't really improving, and I was considering pursuing a different career. I thought maybe I was gonna have to hang him up. But in my gut, something felt unfinished. Well, a lot felt unfinished, but mostly it was that I hadn't performed Fancy Free yet. So I stuck it out, and eventually I improved, and a few months after I came back to work, I was cast as a second sailor in Fancy Free, and I got to check that box off the bucket list. And I got to perform it for many years thereafter with some really close friends, and we always had a wonderful time on stage in this ballet. I think that it's evident when a cast is very close-knit. I think it elevates a performance beyond even the sum of those brilliant steps and that brilliant Bernstein score. This was Jerome Robins' first ballet. I like to think of that heady time when Bernstein was rushing the newly written score over to Robins' apartment downtown, and they were these young madmen geniuses working on this masterpiece of a ballet that so many years later we're still performing today. I got to be the second sailor, but eventually I transitioned into the third sailor, which is kind of the older guy, which was a lot of fun. And the last time I did it was with a cross-pollinated cast of ABT and New York City ballet dancers. And as a testament to Jean-Pierre Froehlich's staging, we barely rehearsed. The staging was so consistent, everything just dovetailed perfectly together, and we had a great time. I miss doing Fancy so much, but I also love seeing this generation's take on it, and it takes me back to a really pivotal time in our nation's history, and a time when America came together to overcome great odds. So it resonates today in this time, of course, and I draw inspiration from it. That said, let's go do some ballet. Okay, we're going to start with pliés, and we're going to incorporate a couple motifs from Fancy Free. Let's see if you notice them. First position, 5, 6, 7, 8, we'll have demi-plié, grand plié, cambre forward, up, cambre back. Second position, demi-plié, grand plié. Now we're going to turn in, slap our thighs, and what we're doing is we're admiring the huge buildings in New York City, the skyscrapers. So we've just gotten off the boat, we have one night, we're just amazed at the big city. Let's pretend it's Times Square. Wow, it's going to be a great night. Let's do it. Then demi, grand plié, circle, cambre, all the way around, rise up, and now we're going to hold on to our hat, but not with all our fingers because we don't want to get it dirty because it's white. Détourné, other side. Got that, Stella?
Got it.
Hit it. Okay, our tendus are going to be inspired by theme of variations. The iconic theme tendus. When that curtain rises, you see the dancers in formation. The ballerina kicks the whole thing off with some beautiful tendus that are actually kind of difficult. They look simple, but it belies their intricacy. She calls, the guy answers, then the choir answers. We're going to do a little variation on that theme. and 2, and 2, and 2, and 2, and step, brush, little catch step, plie, and then we tendu kind of in between écarté and effacé, plie, releve, and 2, and 2, and 2, and 2, and step, brush, little catch step, plie, in between écarté and effacé, fifth, rise, other side. I should note that you should probably cross a little more since it's a Balanchine step. Let's do it. Good, Stella. Make sure you cross those condos. This is Balanchine. Yes. Good. I like the equal Okay, we're gonna have dégagés inspired by the first sailor's solo. So, let's just keep the arms a second, keep it simple. And 1, 2, 3, 4. Second, I'm the best. 1, 2, 3, 4. Second, I'm the best. Back, 2, 3, 4. Second, I'm the best. Now he does this little walk as he enters the bar. I never did the first sailor, but I'm going to give it a shot now. So we've done this, and we're going to go. 1, 2, 3, 4. Side 4, back 4, and then give it a little swag, a little attitude. Okay, so we're going to wear a hat because the hat perfectly represents each character in Fancy Free. The first sailor, he's got a bit of a short fuse, he's a little aggressive, he's charming, but he's always looking for action, whether it's women, looking for a fight, and the way he wears his hat represents that, so he kind of wears it kind of low. Just imagine this is a sailor hat. We are in quarantine, after all, don't have access to costumes. So he kind of wears it low, and he's like, you know, he's looking for love, looking for something. Second sailor, he's from some farm in the Midwest. He's really innocent, he's sincere, he's corn-fed. He wears his hat, kind of leave it to beaverish, up here with a lock of hair. Man, Stella, I need a haircut. Will you give me a haircut?
No.
She won't. She refuses.
No.
Third sailor, he cants his a little bit at a jaunty angle because he's kind of cool and suave. He's a little more experienced than the other two. He's the alpha of the trio, the leader. So the way he wears his hat reflects that. So if you want to wear a hat for the dégagés, you want to wear it first sailor style. That's right. 7, 8. We're going to go pas de cheval. You can go high retiré if you wish. 2 plie, and then we're going to pull up our pants. So not only the second sailor does this, but all the sailors do it, pulling up their pants. And of course, you don't want to get your sailor whites dirty. So you just use the palms of your hand, just like when you hold your hat, and it's 2 fingers on each hand. So 5, 6, 7, 8, we have pas de cheval, pull up the pants, pas de cheval, pull up the pants, pas de cheval, pull up the pants. Then let's do a passe, balance with your hands on your shoulders, like the sailors do in their pirouettes. 2, 5. 1, 2, 3, 4. One more with soutenu, and then we do a little pulse. You can have your hands clasped behind your back if you want to be really authentic. Little pulse. So we have pas de cheval, lift, pas de cheval, lift, pas de cheval, lift, passe, 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, soutenu to 5th, little pulse of excitement. We see that in the pas de deux with the second passerby and the second sailor, or the third sailor, depending on who's doing the pas de deux. I'm of the school of thought that the second sailor is more appropriate for the pas de deux than the third, because we see his kind of innocence and excitement. So that's what that signifies, is that sort of excitement at being around this beautiful woman. We got it? Stella?
Yes.
Rock and roll. You need the hat?
I think I'll just imagine that it's on my head.
Okay. Nice.
I forgot my arms.
Okay, Stella, how about you teach fondus? Maybe a fondue inspired by Caroline in Jardin Aux Lilas, since you learned that part, the leading part.
Be happy to. All right, so we'll take fondue starting 5th position, 6 and a 7 and 8 and a fondue to the front and a fondue to the side and a fondue to the back and rest, close and plie to the front and change to the side and change to the back and a sous-sous, roll down and reverse, back side, extend to stretch, plie, close, and to the back, and shift, surrender, and shift over, back Sutsunu, arms down, and lower, we'll repeat to the other side. So we'll do a nice Sutsunu with the arms floating down by your sides, just complementing the torso movement. Here we go.
Okay, grand moment. We're going to continue with a little fancy-free movement. We're going to incorporate something from the first sailor solo and something that the third sailor does that kind of is reflective of his character as the cool guy. So just simple grand moment, 5, 6, 7, 8, 1 and the 2, and pretend my legs are high, and the 5 and the 6 and the 7, 8. 1 and the 2, and the 3, and the 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Up and the 2, and 3, and 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. And back to fit. So this is what the first sailor does at the end of his variation. He's been spinning the whole time, and then he has to land and stick that landing. And the third sailor earlier on, when we all kind of break up and do movements that show our characters, this is what one of the things that he's doing, kind of slicking his hair, and careful not to touch your whites too much. But we got that?
Yes.
Thanks, Stella. Okay, so we'll start with the first little phrase from the second sailor's solo. So these movements are supposed to represent a sailor finding his balance on top of a ship's deck. So maybe a frigate, a destroyer, somewhere in the South Pacific, maybe the Bismarck Sea, because it's 1944. This guy, he's easygoing, he's happy-go-lucky. The first sailor just tried to shoot for the moon with his double tours, and you know, that's not this guy's style. He's just gonna work his charm for the second passerby, especially with whom he just had a really romantic pas de deux. So they're over there, all the focus is on them. We're just catching our balance. Easy. Beautiful day. Break it down. So we have brush, brush, kind of swinging, brush, brush from here, little pirouette, change the hands and go to the other side. Coupe, pas de bourrée, step over, arabesque turn, on the door. So one of the curses and blessings of the second sailor's role is that he has to do these slides. And it takes a certain type of shoe to do that, a hard-soled character shoe. So your feet will never really point in these shoes. A blessing and a curse. You don't have to really worry about it too much, then again, you're not going to have the best line. So I don't have those shoes on right now. I have the kind of more modern jazz shoes that all the guys wear, the other sailors wear right now. So yeah, brush, brush, coupe, pas de bourrée, brush, brush, pirouette, change the hands, brush, brush, coupe, pas de bourrée, step over, arabesque turn, on the door, pirouette, maneuver, pas de shot, reach, coupe chatin, that's enough for the first sailor. It gets a little more virtuosic later on, but it starts nice and easy. He's just out for a stroll, gonna romance this woman. He's gonna win him over with his boyish charm, which I've clearly outgrown.